Hey everybody, I wanted to jump on here and do a little bit more of an extended talk about the reels, the TikToks and the shorts that I have been posting the last day. And the concept is shame and guilt and how it affects our biology. So I've been coaching for 12 years and I've obviously been a human for what, 48 years now. And and what I've seen that shame and guilt does to the physical body is probably some of the greatest destruction that you've experienced in your life. See, we think that it's like heartbreak or it's loss or it's fear that holds us back. But really, when we remove guilt and shame, a human can look at fear very organically, right? And it's just like, what creates the block? It is never loss, because when you finally go all the way into loss, there is some release there. But what keeps you from loss, right? What keeps you from really looking at fear organically? Like, okay, like, what does this actually mean? And just like ego, okay, just like society, there's always a middleman in the way. There's always a middleman between you and your healing, between you and your abundance, between you and your love, between you and your magic, between you and your genius, between you and the invention that you're supposed to create here, between you and, joy. Okay, we could say that. And what is it? We think that it's, oh, loss, my heartbreak, all these things. It's not, you guys. I'm telling you, after doing thousands of hours of hypnosis, doing thousands of coaching sessions, and going through my own experience. I mean, obviously, I'm the biggest guinea pig that there is. And, the way that shame and guilt works in our self concept is so destructive. But the entire scarcity program, or the paradigm, or the society that we live in, scarcity, okay, it is designed to manipulate you into submission of scarcity. So, what is the greatest way to manipulate a human into doing the right thing for the wrong person is to shame and guilt them. I know 100% that your parents shamed and guilted you into certain vibes. Okay. Now, they were doing this from a place of manipulation because they were trying to get you to look at what you were doing and feel bad about it, or they weren't thinking and they just, blurted something out that was really embarrassing you, especially in that second 7 year cycle between 7 and 14, where you're going now, like, your identification is around who I am in the world, like who I am at school. And your mom's like, embarrassing you or whatever. It's very traumatic. Like, even people who had a very feathered nest or had great parents that loved them were still shame and guilted. And I mean, come on, it's in every part of the church. Like, you need to feel guilty. You need to fear God. And this scarcity program that we live in is designed to get you, sensitive, empathic people, to stay in line. Now, you may think, oh, I'm a rebel, I'm an outlaw, I do what I want, I don't do what authority says to do, but you're still led, and you're still governed by what basically what you identify with. And when you dig up your self-concept, because you'll be in this present moment, you'll be working on self-concept, you'll be like reprogramming, you're doing affirmations, you're even doing self-hypnosis, and if you're in our boot camp, you're really, really digging deep. And every single time, the core is going to be wrapped in shame and guilt. So I just made a series of reels. I can only do like a minute and a half on Instagram. So frustrating. So I had to do like 6 or 7 of them. But ultimately, what I wanted to do is I wanted to like complete my stream of consciousness here, because, when it's flowing, it's growing, and I just got to let it out. And it is probably the biggest torturous experience, like deprogramming yourself from shame and guilt, because it's a catch-22, right? When it's time to shame and guilt, you're usually shamed and guilted. You know what I mean? Like, when you become more aware, you have to look at like what is in the container, like what is actually going on with me, and it becomes a very scary place. So trying to do this without a mentor, I don't know how you guys do it, but like, when you actually have someone who is holding space for you and has probably done it 10 different ways sideways, and so literally does not have the ability to judge you, it is a really good idea to lay it all out, to get it out, because it's the thing is people go, oh, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. Well, what I believe is that you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you're hiding. Okay. And there are things about your self-concept that you have built from shame and guilt. Like I was saying, the real shame builds a mask of identity, of something that you're either trying to cover up, or something that you want to overcome, or something that you want to prove, or you're something that you want to do because you were shamed. Okay. It is also coming from something you're hiding. And so that's why when you get triggered, it's like, I was hiding that. How did you know? How did you push my shame button? How did you tell me I'm irresponsible? How did you tell me that I'm not doing enough? Right? Personality of shame has so many levels. It's overdoer, it's a people pleaser, it's overgiver, it's over nurturing. Okay. And it also, so anytime there is a negative emotional pattern that has been in the body for a really long time, it creates its own identification, which means that it thinks, it feels like your shame feels, it thinks, all right, on multiple levels. And then it's gonna stream, like it's gonna be a filter of what you're trying to put out into the world. So it's like you are a loving, empathic, sensitive woman or man, and you're putting that in, and it's filtering through the shame and guilt. And shame means, as the I am in the self-concept, shame means that I am bad. Guilt means I did something bad. Now, you are a little child at heart who still wants to please mommy and daddy, but maybe now mommy and daddy have become your job or the government or your spouse. And so that child inside of you is still carrying that deep shame and guilt in your body. And it will reside in every organ associated with what happened. So if it is in the root chakra, like if somebody messed with you and nobody was there to protect you, you might like have not told because you were trying to protect your parents, or who knows, like children do things like superheroes, like we take on all the responsibility of the emotional pain of our families. We blame ourselves. We don't stop loving our parents. We stop loving ourselves. And so when we start like working towards expansion in our consciousness and start really becoming more aware that we are aware and that we have a choice, and that we look at our motivational factors of what is leading and guiding and governing our desires, our behaviors, our thoughts, our feelings, and we do a full inspection like a detective work. I look at finding shame and guilt like a CSI case, because when you are ashamed, you get this huge wave of self-preservation. And yes, you might hide for a while. And some of you have taken guilt and shame and you've either done a victim or a perpetrator personality identification out of it. So let's say you were ashamed and it made you feel like a total victim, then you might literally have a self-concept of I must hide. And therefore you might have a huge body of work inside of you that you want to share with the world. But that shame or guilt that is causing that self-preservation identity within you, we have to hide. Someone's going to see, and you don't even know, like it's so down deep into your cellular memory and muscle memory at this point and in your neural pathways that every time you stream consciousness, it has to go through these filters. And so it's going to hit the guilt. It's going to cause the anxiety when you get really excited about doing something or sharing something with the world. It's got to pass through that shame and guilt later, and that turns into anxiety, because inner excitement is the same frequency as excitement, but it's going from a positive to a negative charge. So when you're like trying to blow through your walls and redesign your body and your money and your love life and finally get, the relationship that you deserve, you have to understand that you're going up against the body that was ashamed. Money is shameful. How dare you ask for that? Money doesn't grow on trees. Who do you think you are? I mean, those are just a few of the things that I heard when I asked, because I felt like I had a very opulent little spirit growing up, and it wasn't received well. So even the desires of your true heart are shamed and guilted into submission, where it forces you to change your identity. So it'll show up in what you're trying to do that you can't seem to do. It'll show up in your resentment on how much you're overgiving. It'll show up in that anxiety of being seen, heard, or judged. It will show up as maybe feeling unworthy, or who am I to want that, or someone's already doing that better, or I'll do that later, procrastination. That's why in every single video, I'm always asking you guys questions like, what's your motivation? Like, because it's like an actor. okay, it's like I'm reading the script and it's like, okay, why am I doing all these things? What's my motivation? Like, why am I choosing men that are emotionally unavailable? Why am I sabotaging my diet? Why am I, not finishing my coaching program that I know will change the world? Why am I not writing my book? Why am I not writing my podcast? And it's not coming actually from the story of, well, because I failed before. It is the guilt of failing. It is the shame of failing again. So failure is actually part of growth. And so when there's no shame and guilt, you're like, well, if I fail, I learn. Like it's a completely different ball game. And you can't really fail because every ending is a beginning. Every cycle is just one continuous stream of consciousness. So you never actually fail. But if you associate your failures or your mistakes or how your body looks or what you currently have, then you're stuck in this catch-22 where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because if shame and guilt is leading you, then it is the dominant factor in your attraction, in your creations. What I've noticed, and just to put it all out there, is the relationships that I've had in the past. As a coach, like you're in that honeymoon effect, like the first 3 months. And so you overlook things, and I'm sure they overlook things within you, but ultimately you're a vibrational match. And after about 3 months, if you're aware, you can kind of see like what you're a match to, because even though somebody might be demonstrating shame and guilt in a like an idea of being the victim, like I look at the victim like over giving, even though that doesn't seem like a victim. Like, oh, but it's not poor me. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to overgive because I feel so bad about myself. I feel so unworthy that I have to give, that I have to push, that I have to contribute, that I have to make a big impact, that I have to heal everybody because I feel hurt. Like anybody that feels guilty, I'm like, don't feel guilty. You're always apologizing. And same with shame. And so you get into this relationship and it may show up differently in your relationship. Like it might actually be a perpetration. Someone might be blaming you, but you're going, oh my God, that's so hypocritical. Like they're doing the exact same thing. So some people literally take the full responsibility over and work to never feel shame and never feel guilt again, but their self-concept was built out of that. So your motivating factors, what motivates you to do, what motivates you to have, what stops you from having, what breaks your flow from source energy, because like we live in a very abundant universe, like to the point where it is so opulent, it's gluttonous how much abundance and freedom is waiting for you. But there's like two major blocks, and it's shame and guilt of whatever you're ashamed and guilted from. Some things are legit that you need to like literally work through. And a lot of this stuff was so your parents didn't have to do the hard work. So the church could keep you submissive to God, so that, your teachers could make you feel bad about yourself so you would shut up, right? And this is going to happen to bright lights. This is going to happen to major leaders. This is going to happen to people who have something to really be here. When you come into this world and you are full of life and you are full of light and you are, unapologetic about who you are, it really pisses people off that have hidden guilt and shame. And so they want you to feel the same. Okay. So you get in these relationships and, all of a sudden you're being blamed and they're projecting and you're like, that's you. But you're like, wait a second, I'm a match to this. So I might be the victim, but you're the perpetrator end. And then what that will do is it'll cause you to shift into the perpetrator to defend yourself. And then usually the relationship ends or whatever. But look at the relationship no different than money. Like, look at what's flowing in is what you're allowing. What you're letting go is what you believe that you can from a place of your identities. And so like if shame and guilt are an identity within you, then they are involved in your level of attraction, and they are involved in what you can create. They're going to be involved in what you think, and they are involved in every nook and cranny of your joy and happiness. So if you are the person who is having a hard time creating long-lasting joy, abundance, freedom, love, vitality, freedom in your life, like you want to look at, okay, where am I holding on to guilt and shame? So matter of fact, today in our boot camp, the Manifest Your Dream Body boot camp, we are doing our big, we're going to be doing our big purges, because what I've seen is that if you have shame and guilt in your field, okay, which every human does until they let it go, because that's just the indoctrination here. is it causes you to not hear. It causes you to fall asleep in class. It causes you to forget because the program says, I am guilty, right? I must be punished. I am ashamed. I must be better. Okay. So if you're running a I must be punished program, you're going to pay the money and you're not going to get what you want, or you're not going to do the work. So shame and guilt is like one of the most essential things that when I started to move it out of my body, even though I was going through some shame and guilty moments during the purge, because it's like, you're going to keep attracting it. You're going to keep attracting feeling guilty with your kids. You're going to keep attracting feeling ashamed of your body. No matter what you do, if those two programs are alive, they think, feel, attract, and behave. So you're not going to be able to outsmart a filter. Okay. You can't outsmart the filter. The filter is going to find wherever the energy is moving, just like on Snapchat. You move your head around and the dog is there, right? So shame and guilt are literally going to follow you until you go, stop running. And you see, you think it's fear you're running from or lack. But see, what is causing lack in the most abundant universe that there is? Like, and you, being a child of God, deserve it all. It's all yours. You're here to inherit the earth. You are here to literally, unapologetically, authentically prove that you are God through your actions, influences, and body of work that you create for this planet, even if it's just you walking around in complete confidence and joy. Like, being around someone who is not shaming themselves is like a breath of fresh air. Being around someone who's not carrying a bunch of guilt and they're just like really true and honest is wonderful, unless you're hiding shame and guilt, and then you're triggered as AF by the fact that they are not walking around and usually it's the people who are doing things that you would judge, that you think, why are they not ashamed of that? Why do they think that that's okay to wear? Why do they think that that is okay? Because ultimately you were shamed and guilted into your self-identity, and now you're building your reality out of the fabric of shame and guilt, and it is in every cell, and it is in every muscle, and it is every thought, and it is every part. It might be on the back end. It might like let your like leash out a little bit so you can create, but you'll always attract something. Like for me, I would get really confident and happy and proud of my work, and then I throw it out there, and then there would always be someone that has to shame me or guilt me, or and again, until I looked at that as me pushed out, like Neville Goddard says, like, and take a hard look at, okay, I'm now shining, and this is what I'm attracting. And see, this is why you're afraid to shine. It's because, see, I can deal with it. Like, I need to see it in order to see it. Like, I need to manifest it in order to like know what it is. But some of you are like, I'm not going to manifest anything because I don't want to be ashamed. I don't. So you're walking around holding on to it and thinking that you're hiding it from the world. And yet the world sees it, even if you don't leave your house. Even if you don't, like, the people who are eating because of shame are getting so big that they're feeling ashamed if they go to the grocery store. You see how this is ridiculous? So it's time, you guys, whether you do this with me or you find a way. I wouldn't recommend going to the Catholic Church and going into and telling anybody that, because it will be used against you and in the court of law somehow, some way. But finding a place or a way to once and for all get this out of your body, because the only thing that is in the way of true abundant, because it's just a flow, guys. You don't have to do anything. You have to earn anything. You don't have to create any sort of value on this planet whatsoever to be worth ultimate health and vitality, ultimate abundance and freedom. You just have to exist. So you understand that if all your job was to do is just to exist, to earn your share, which is all you could ever want, then what is in the way is something that you're hiding, avoiding, and it's become part of your identity. Shame becomes a mask of, I must be better, I must do better, I must help. And guilt means I must punish myself. So you want to look at where you're sabotaging and where you're overdoing, and you want to take stock of that and sit in non-judgment of yourself and find a way to get this out of your body once and for all. I personally think that having someone hold space, see you, hear you, love you, tell you, like, this is part of the game, this is part of Earth, like, they're going to pack your body full of shame and guilt, so you're so frozen, you don't do anything, you don't. And those of us who do it and we feel shame and guilt, we kind of just like pull it along with us until we purge it, because it will be in every new move. It will be in every new job. You can't outrun yourself. And I tried. It does not work. And you know, and now it's like almost like I'm forgiving myself, but there's certain things that I still have to like clean up in my life that I'm working on. But if I shame and guilt the fact that I didn't know what I didn't know, what I didn't know, then I'm going to be feeling the old guilt and shame. Plus, I'm going to feel all the new guilt and shame of creating the loop again, because you're going to keep manifesting more reasons, because you're going to make mistakes that are led from the identity and self-concept of shame and guilt as a personality within you. So what's in the way of your money? Guilt and shame. What is in the way of your badass body that you truly deserve, that will manifest mountains for you to move? Okay. Shame and guilt. Relationship issues, shame and guilt. Okay. And the thing is like I said in the reels, go check them out. I'll try to put them on a little bit more of a cluster on YouTube. But, you know, one of the things about shame and guilt is that when you feel shamed and guilt, it's the bully effect. When you are bullied, you will bully someone else. When you're shamed and guilted, you will use shame and guilt to manipulate and repress others, because you're feeling a certain way, and it's going to be an organic, like shame and guilt is a personality. And so it is shame and guilt. So if you're going to shame and guilt your kids, you're going to shame and guilt people, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was so shameful. Like, even if it's like, oh, don't you want to hang out with me? I never get to see you anymore. That is guilt. You're trying to guilt someone from love. You got to pay attention to where you're doing this to people, because if you're doing this to people reactively without being aware of it, it's because it's coming from inside of you. Triggers are not, the idea of a trigger is pushing a trigger and something coming out. It's not something coming at you, guys. Like, someone is not attacking you. They poked the bear and something came out. That's what a trigger is. And I want to help you understand the biology of manifesting to the point where you don't associate with this shame and guilt as something that is yours, or that's something that you have to carry around forever and keep being this guilty, ashamed little kid that is now trying to do all this amazing stuff in the world, or create something that could leave an impact on this planet, and you're too frozen, or you keep choosing the wrong thing, because shame and guilt is choosing. It's attracting in more shame and guilt. And I know this from experience. So like, when I really started to let go, especially of the shame and guilt around my body, the body was just like, psh, I walk around naked. I don't even care. And it's not perfect. I mean, it's, by my standards it is, but to the world that might look different. But I have zero consideration on how my body of 48 looks naked after having 4 kids, and because the shame and guilt is not there. So then we work on the shame and guilt around money. We work on the shame and guilt around relationships, which is going to be coming back to mommy and daddy issues. And we purge those for different chakras and organs of the body. And guess what? Can you imagine what you would feel if you were like that little kid that was not like worried about how they looked, or worried about their like judging themselves on what they've accomplished so far. So I hope this helps in the idea of, it's not too late to join us on our boot camp. It's a go at your own pace. I know it says on there we started like October 15th or something, but it's a go at your own pace. That's just when it was launched. And I do live coaching sessions in there. I do live Q&As in there, but everything is like there because I want you to create codependency with your higher self, not me. And you can take up to a year to do it, even though it's done in 90 days. Because once you actually like understand the formula of manifestation properly, you'll go back in and you'll do it for all different types of things. You'll do it for creating this and this and this and this, but because it's good to change your self-concepts in certain areas, where you try to change your self-concept with your body and money and this and all the time. You'll be too many affirmations, you won't be able to leave the house. So kind of like pick the area that will give you the greatest change right now. And you can do this for money. If you're like, my body's okay, but I want to do this biology of manifesting with money, do it, because it's the same formula. And so even if it's for a relationship, finding that special person or whatever, do it, because like attracts like, right? And like attracts what you're hiding. And if you're not hiding anything, then that means they're not going to be hiding anything. And if you're not hiding shame and guilt, they won't be projecting it on you. Wow, what a idea. Unity consciousness, here we come. So it isn't fear, it isn't loss, it isn't heartbreak that you are freezing from. Those are all natural occurrences. It's the shame and guilt, the middleman, the middle frequencies in the lower, like in the lower emotions that keep you. It's like between loss and fear, right? It's the icky, it's the humiliation, it's the shame, it's the guilt, it's the guilt trips. Okay, so that is what's in your way of your money, your health, and your opportunities, and truly connecting to be able to hear source direct, like download. Because if I feel guilty, I don't deserve to hear source. God would not like what I did 10 years ago when I was asleep, or yesterday when I had to survive. Time isn't relative here, and you can forgive yourself majorly today for something you did tomorrow if you have a change of perspective, if you see that covering this up and continuing to be this identification is literally going to just cause another loop, even if you're doing the right thing all the time. Okay. So I hope this helped. I will put the login to join. Just FYI, I would highly recommend, if you guys are watching this before January of 2024, that you join now, because I am going to be raising the price of my course in January. First of all, there's so much content. It's so freaking worth it. But I just lowered the price because I knew a lot of people were going to have to be around their families this holiday, and they could use some tools. And so it was like my holiday gift. But in January, the price will be doubled. It is 90 days, but there's probably a 4-year university worth of training of epigenetics and quantum biology. Is the biology of manifesting. So it's through the body. This is going to build you an insane connection with yourself, and the relationship you have with you creates every single thing out there. So it is the most important thing. It's not about having the 6-pack abs, although it's nice. It's about your connection to yourself that creates the connection with the divine. All right. So I hope to see you guys in there, and I hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving.